Hello and welcome back. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today I have for you one of my crafting episodes. That's what I call my really long videos that are jam-packed with lots of card ideas. Today we'll talk about how you can combine your alcohol inks with your specialty cardstocks to create sparkly backgrounds. This technique is very fast and it's very easy, and you can use it to make a bunch of backgrounds at once. I then turned these backgrounds into many different cards. I had a bunch of dies that I had been wanting to use, so I used them all in different ways with just basic white cardstock, along with these colorful backgrounds to create a variety of card designs. So this is a fun way to put to use some dies that you already have, alcohol inks, and specialty cardstocks. By the way, I will be probably, I think this weekend, auctioning off many of the cards that you see in this video to help a family that's in need. So I will provide a link to my Instagram account below. If you want to watch my Instagram account this weekend, I'll be sharing details there in my stories. So be sure to check that out. Okay, now back to the video. Let's start out by making some sparkly alcohol ink backgrounds. I first went through my stash to find different sparkly cardstocks or shiny cardstocks that I could use. First, I have the Memory Box Twinkling Jewel Glitter Paper Pad. I've used this in many videos. It die cuts wonderfully. There's lots of great glitter colors in here, and the glitter doesn't rub off. Nice mix of color selection, as you can see. There is also a holiday glitter paper pad, very similar to the other one, but more holiday colors. I like this one because it has this beautiful champagne color, different silvers and golds in there, and those lighter colors are great for today's technique. However, you could use the darker colors too, which you'll see. Any of the glitter cardstocks you have will probably work for this. I've just bought a bunch of these and I really like them, so I thought I'd use them today. There's also the Delicate Pastel Glitter Paper Pad, just like the others, but all soft colors. So there's white in here and then like super light pink, light peach, light green, light blue. And these are wonderful for today's technique. So I use quite a few of the white from that. Now, in addition to that bold glitter cardstock, there is a frosted glitter paper. So this is a different pad. This is frosted. So if you like the texture of glitter and a little bit of a glitter feel, but not too like ostentatious or bold, this is a good option. So the white looks like frosted snow. It's gorgeous. The black, it's pretty shiny, but gorgeous too. So you can see this has all the look of glitter, but not as shiny. So that's another option, and I'll be using this a few times today. Here's a little comparison. So there you can see the frosted on the top and the regular glitter on the bottom. Really has quite a big difference in real life, so it's nice to have these two options available. Here's also a comparison between the white frosted, which is the one I'm showing you here. You can see the texture, great for snow. Then on the bottom there is the white glitter version. So it's got a different feel and look to it, and I'll use both today as I mentioned. I'll also be using Erin Lee Creative Holographic Cardstock. I've enjoyed using holographic cardstock a lot lately because it picks up whatever colors are on your card. By the way, she does have colored holographic available, but I'm sticking with just the basic today. I'll also try out the Simon Says Stamp Assorted Holographic Cardstock Pack. You can see some of the crazy fun patterns of holographic here. This one has just some lines to it. I'll be using that one. There's this one that looks like shattered glass. Then there is one that looks like it's got holographic glitter in it, this one, but it's smooth. And I'll also try that one out. So in summary, you can try any shiny or specialty cardstock you have. Mirror cardstock, gold, silver, all would work great. Okay, now let's talk about alcohol inks. So I'm using Tim Holtz Alcohol Ink from Ranger. I really like their alcohol inks. You could use the pearl version or the regular. I'm using the regular today. I also have the Tim Holtz Alcohol Blending Solution, which helps to move the colors around on your cardstock. Then I have the Alcohol Ink Air Blower, which is a fantastic way to move the color around. If you are new to alcohol inks, I will put a link here on the top right and in my description below to a basics video where you can get a lot of information. Today I'm focusing just on using them with the specialty cardstocks. Okay, so I'm starting with white frosted glitter paper, the frosted version I showed you before. I put down some blending solution first, and then a few drops of alcohol ink. A little goes a long way, and you can always add more later. Now I'll use the air blower to move the color around. I do find it best to put the blending solution down first because you're putting this into a lot of texture. You need something to help the color move around, and the blending solution does that. Now I'm using the air blower in different directions to kind of get the color moving. I do find that with glitter cardstocks like this frosted one, that I do need to use a bit more alcohol ink than I do normally. So you'll see me go and add more color here and there. The color also doesn't move as freely because of the texture. But if you keep working on it, as you see here, you'll end up with a really beautiful result. I really like these results on the frosted white glitter cardstock because it's not super sparkly. It's just got that texture to it and is really a great, especially for a holiday card or maybe an ocean scene. Okay, now let's try the white glitter paper. So this is the regular glitter paper. I put down blending solution first. Now I'm adding the same colors of alcohol ink and using the air blower to move it around. I found on the traditional glitter paper, it moves a little bit better than it does on the frosted. But I still always put down blending solution before adding the color. Otherwise, you kind of get a drop of color that stays put and doesn't want to move around too much. And here is a comparison between the frosted on the left and the regular glitter paper on the right. If you don't have a white version of glitter paper, you can use a soft silver or gold, and that would be fun too, which you'll see later on. So let's do another example on white frosted glitter paper, but this time we'll add metallic to it. So once again, I start with my blending solution and then the drops of color. Then we can move those colors around as much as we want by using the hand air blower. This time I used 3 very different colors and I really like the results. Okay, now we're going to add metallic alloys to this. This is a product from Tim Holtz also that you can put in with your alcohol inks to create a really cool metallic look in different areas. So I'm using the Gilded color. You want to shake it up really, really well. Then I'll put down some blending solution and drops of the metallic alloy. A little goes a long way with this product. I usually like to put down blending solution, alloy, and then blending solution, and then start moving it around. And you'll see like these lines of what looks like gilded gold around your project. You can put on as much or as little as you want. I did find I needed to use more alloy on this glitter paper, again because of the texture, than I would on a normal Yupo or alcohol cardstock. If you want to learn more about alloys, I will provide a link to a video focused on those up here on the top right also. Okay, so I did do a bit of the alloy and now I'm going to give that a little bit of time to dry and you can see the final results. So here you can see the bits of gold that kind of float here and there on the background. Okay, let's do the same colors, but this time on a white glitter paper. Put down my blending solution, now I'm putting down some colors and we'll start moving that. Now I will say, if you've tried alcohol inks on Yupo paper, which is really slick, and you have kind of a hard time controlling the colors and how they move, this might be a good option to try. Because of the texture on the paper, the colors don't move as freely, so it's almost easier to control. So if you have some glitter paper, give it a try. Here I put the alloy drops down, but I intentionally didn't move it around as much, so I would have kind of these spots or areas of the gold. Totally up to you. If you want it to move more, just add more of the blending solution and keep moving it with the air blower. So here's a comparison. On the left is the white frosted glitter paper, and on the right is the regular white glitter paper. So a lot more sparkle on the right. It's really fun to get different looks on different papers. Okay, let's do another example on the white frosted glitter paper. This time I'm using very different colors. So I've got a purple, a pink, and like a warm yellow color. Now I will add some of the Gilded alloy here at this point just to show you can do it as you go if you want to. So I did put down my blending solution before the different colors, and now I'm using the air blower. This time I'm not moving the color as much, so I have a lot more variation in the background. I just wanted to show this example to let you know that it doesn't all have to smooth out and blend as much if you prefer that look. And now let's do the same colors, but this time on the regular white glitter cardstock. Put down blending solution, the colors, the gold, the gilded gold alloy, move it around a little bit with an air blower, and look at that. You could do some really cool galaxy skies this way if you wanted to. So I'm just making as many of these pieces as I can, so I have lots ready to make a bunch of cards. However, I do warn you, it becomes very addictive. Okay, now I know people are more likely to have a silver glitter cardstock or a gold, so let's do one of those as an example. Here I put the blending solution down first and then the color. I did put a little bit too much down at first, so some of it got blown off the edge. So I do encourage you to kind of go light at first and then build it up. I will say this will dry down in color. It'll dry lighter as that color kind of absorbs into the glitter paper. So keep that in mind too. But I ended up loving the results. So here you can see it does pull back quite a bit, softens, and it just gives a beautiful blended result. Now, if you have a color or darker glitter cardstock, such as this blue frosted one here, you can use the white Snow Cap alcohol ink in it too. Be sure to shake it up really well. Do the blending solution first, and you can add some other colors with it. And look at the beautiful results you can get with that. So really, I encourage you just to play and have fun with this. These are the 6x6 pieces of glitter cardstock, and I'll end up getting multiple cards out of it, usually 2 or 3, and I'll give you ideas for that later on. I'll even show you how to use up the tiniest little scraps so nothing goes to waste. This time I'm using a purple glitter cardstock, not the frosted version, the regular. I put down blending solution, some colors, some of the white snow cap, and look at the cool things you can do with this too. If it starts to look in a way you don't like, add more blending solution so that you can move it around some more. I didn't find a need to use a fixative on these, but you definitely could do a spray fixative at the end if you want, and I will link to a fixative that I like to use below. But again, I just left these as is. This does take a little bit more time to dry because I use so much blending solution, but the results are always nice. Okay, now let's look at the holographic cardstock. You could use a mirror or shiny cardstock here instead if you want. Now this is a very slick surface. It's very smooth. So the color is going to move very easily, even more so than it would on Yupo. So keep that in mind. I put my blending solution down first, putting some color into that, and you can see how quickly and easily it moves even on its own. When I'm not blowing on a certain area, it still moves a bit. If you don't want as much movement of color, use the less blending solution in the first place. Now the fun part about this is you could take a silver shiny cardstock or a holographic cardstock like this and make it whatever color you want. So you can make it work for whatever card you're going for. If you want to, you can let this dry and then do another layer to build up even more color, but I thought this was pretty as is. Okay, let's look at one of the other specialty holographic cardstocks. This is the one that had the lines in it. This is from Simon Says Stamp, and I thought it'd be fun to see what this would do. I did the blending solution in a few different colors. Now I'm moving it around with my air blower. I used less of the blending solution in color so you can see how it doesn't move as much on its own, so it's a little bit easier to control. So that's something to keep in mind too. And then there, when it dries, I really like that kind of stripy look in it. It looks really cool. Now this is one of the Simon Says Stamp holographic cardstocks that looks like it's got glitter, but it's very, very smooth. So I'm doing a bunch of color on this. Now you can see I'm moving it around. I didn't even use much blending solution here. And the results are really beautiful too. So grab your specialty cardstocks, even the scraps that you might have. Use your alcohol inks with them, and I think you'll get some results that you'll love. Now that we've created a bunch of backgrounds, let's make some cards and projects. I had a bunch of dies that I'd been wanting to use all season, and I thought I'd put them all to use in this video. So I have lots of examples, but along the way, I share ideas for how to stretch your backgrounds to make as many cards as you can, and also how to keep a project clean and simple when you have those bold, glittery backgrounds. I will warn you, I do a lot of card examples here, so I have to move through them pretty quickly. Let's start with some paper ornaments. I was really excited about these die sets because you can use them to make lots of paper ornaments or tags to go on gifts that are extra special and a keepsake. I'll then show how to use these on a card too. So first we have the Memory Box Snowglobe backer die set. So this is like the foundation for your Snowglobe ornament. And this also comes with the cute little animals that you see there. To go with the backer, there are a few different Snowglobe options. This is the Snowmen Snowglobe. So it's got this little scene Snowglobe die. And then there are the cute little snowmen, accessories for the snowmen, and a cloud. Then there's also the Radiant Snowglobe die. Now this creates a really cool sky. I didn't actually use that sky portion for today's video, but check it out with that sunlight that kind of comes from the corner of it. The third Snowglobe option you can get is cabin, and it has little cabin with Santa and the sleigh and the little smoke coming out of the chimney, and these can be used with your backer too. So lots of different options. This one's probably my favorite, this cabin one, but I'll show you different options with the mix of them. So I die cut these from heavyweight white cardstock. This is Nina Classic Crust Solar White and 110 pounds. I want this to be sturdy, so I die cut 2 of each so that I can glue them together to make it really strong to be an ornament that you could keep. Let's start with one of the backer die cuts. There are some score lines made in that bottom flap below the Snowglobe area. I'm folding along the score line that's the closest to the Snowglobe, then the one that's the farthest, so this one down here. So it ends up giving a little dimension to our Snowglobe. There are also other score lines there that you can use as a guide to add your other pieces. Now I'm taking another of the backer die cuts, but I'm cutting along that first score line. That is so I can glue these together so they'll be strong. So you can see how it's cut just to be the Snowglobe area. Now I'm not gluing it quite yet because we first need to add our background. So I chose one of the alcohol ink glitter paper backgrounds, and I'm just choosing the area I like the most. I'll keep all the scraps for a Christmas tree card that we'll make at the end of this video. Now I like to flip my cardstock over and trace onto there. So I'm tracing onto the back so I know where to cut. After I've traced the inside of the Snowglobe, I'm cutting a little bit outside of that pencil line. So I'm cutting it a little bit bigger than the pencil line. Now we'll glue this piece in between our die cut backer pieces. So here's the backer piece with the flap on the bottom. I put some strong liquid adhesive. This is Gina K Connect liquid adhesive. I'm gluing in my glitter cardstock piece. Now remember, I have the backer piece where I cut the flap off. I'm gluing that on top of it. So this extra little piece that we're gluing on now adds some stability, and it also hides where we're adding our background in. I used the backer die to cut from some blue cardstock, and I'm gluing that in the opening so it looks nice from the back too. And you could write a message there or put another scene if you wanted to. Now I have my next Snowglobe piece. I have 2 cut to be the same. This has one score line right along the bottom to create this little flap. So I'll fold along that score line and it'll get glued inside of our Snowglobe, or you could glue it to the front if you wanted to. Now I have my second of the same die cut. Instead of scoring on that score line or folding there, I'm cutting there. This is just to give some strength to our cardstock. I like to double that up. You don't have to if you don't want to. Now on the piece that has the flap cut off, I did add All Is Calm, All Is Bright with some silver embossing powder. I also used the cloud dies to cut from some vellum, and I'm gluing those vellum clouds right there at the top of our Snowglobe piece that has the flap. Now I have my Snowglobe piece without the flap that I'll glue right onto the front. So the cloud is sandwiched between, and we have a stronger piece here. So there we can glue that right there. I also have a little house, the little cabin, and I did back that with some vellum so you can kind of see through the windows a little bit and it looks frosted. You could really go to town with different colors, but I'm keeping my cards simple and basic by only using white cardstock. So this is one of the layers of my Snowglobe. I actually wanted to create a second layer too, so there's lots of dimension built up inside of it. So I used one of the other Snowglobes, die cut it twice from white cardstock. I'm folding one on the score line and cutting at the score line on the other. Same thing as I did last time, and this just creates another layer for our Snowglobe. Once again, I die cut some of the clouds from vellum, and I'm gluing it between the 2 layers so it's sandwiched in there. I'm gluing the piece without the flap onto the front of the one with the flap, just for stability and to hide where we glued that cloud. Then I can cut the excess off the cloud. Now we have our 3 pieces, the backer on the left and our 2 layers that will get glued into the backer. If you look at that flap on the backer, you'll see those 2 impressed lines. Those are guides to add layers in the inside. You could add 2 layers on the inside and 1 on the front. I'm only doing 1 on the inside and 1 on the front. So I'm putting adhesive between those 2 lines. Then I'll glue the bottom flap of our inside layer right onto that. Now there are a couple ways you can add the front layer. You can do it in front of or behind that little flap on the front of the backer. I decided to do it on the front of it. That way I would have the nice area there for my sentiment. So I'm gluing it right onto that front flap there. And you can see our sentiment is there showing on the front. Okay, so now all we need to do is tie the top together. I have this old gold cording, but any kind of thin string or thread would work for this. I put the cording through the top and twisted it. Now I'm clamping that there with my self-closing tweezers, so it's just being held there. Now I'm taking another piece of cording and tying a bow around that. So now I can push that bow down and I have a bow, but then also these 2 ends at the top that I can tie in a knot. So this will allow me to hang it from a tree or hang it from a package. These are so much fun to make. I plan to spend Thanksgiving making a bunch of these that I can add to teacher gifts and other gifts that I'll be giving out. So here's a look at the completed result. You can see how the layers in there are really cool. You've got the layers of the vellum clouds, you have the cabin up in the front, and then our sparkly night sky in the back. The nice thing about this project and the others I do in this video is it's mostly white cardstock and die cutting. The nice thing about that is you can just buy bulk of white cardstock and do a bunch of die cutting and then a bunch of assembly. If you're looking for heavyweight, inexpensive white cardstock for die cutting, I will link to an option below. Here is where I got the sentiment for this ornament. It's the Gina K Designs Holiday Sentimental stamp set, and I'll use a sentiment from this again later in this video. Okay, let's look at the other paper ornament I did. I assembled it in the same way as my last one. I'm not going to go through the process again because this video is way long as is, but this time I put snowmen on the front and added a little bit of glitter to them with my glitter pen. Again, all of my die cutting is in white. I added a sentiment from the Hero Arts Stocking Bouquet stamp set, and I silver heat embossed that on the front of our ornament. I also added a die cut bow using the Poppy Stamp Grosgrain die, which I really like. I think that's a great die. And it gives you a nice topper on top of this ornament. And I also did a loop of thin ribbon there too. So this stands up like the other ornament, but you can also hang it or tie it on the front of a gift. I also put some little pearls in the sky there. So this was my alcohol ink silver glitter paper background that you see in there. There's a closer look at the shimmer on our little snowmen. Such a fun look to have that bold pop of color in the middle and all white die cuts around it. Remember that this Snowglobe backer actually has room for 2 layers in the inside, even though I only did 1. So keep that in mind if you want to step it up a bit. Now, because I like to use my products in as many ways as possible, I thought it'd be fun to do a card using those Snowglobe dies, but on a card. So this is just flat without all that dimension. Now in this case, I die cut all of the pieces from white cardstock once again, but cut the flaps off the bottom and just assembled them on the front of a card. You can see my little snow globe there. It has layers, but not too much dimension. Now for the background, I used the Birch Press Pinpoint Radial die. I love this die. It has concentric circles that are tiny little dots, so it just adds interest to your background. I did that on light blue cardstock and glued it on the front of a white note card. Now I have my snow globe that I glued at the center of that. I used that Poppy Stamps ribbon die at the top again, and I used a sentiment from the Simon Says Stamp Slimline Scene Builder. I thought the Winter Wishes sentiment would be perfect at the bottom of this snow globe scene. You can see that beautiful sky there right in the background, nice and bold. That was where I used blue glitter cardstock and some white alcohol inks and other colors, and it just gives a really nice night sky once again. So if you have any dies that are meant for 3-dimensional projects or interactive cards, try using them on a traditional card like I did here. It's a great way to stretch them and get more use from them. Okay, let's look at some more card ideas. In this case, I'm using a large window die. Now this is a great way to show off any background technique that you might have done. Okay, so for this, I'm using the Memory Box Lamplight Tree Collage die. This is a great one that has an oval opening with trees and then the lamp. I did put some vellum on the back of the lamppost just so it kind of looked like a light. Adding little vellum details like this is just a fun way to step up your plain white die cuts. So I die cut two of these backgrounds. One is a little bit smaller than the other. That way I could glue it on the back of the bigger one. This just gives it some dimension to put on the front of my card. I like layering die cuts for that added dimension, the kind of shadow effect it creates, but you could do a singular layer if you prefer or want to save time. Now I have one of my alcohol ink backgrounds. This was the light blue frosted glitter paper from earlier. I traced it and cut it down, and now I'll glue this onto the back of my window die cut scene. I really like window dies like this because any pattern paper, background technique, anything you want, you can put behind it. Or you could use it as a giant window on your card. This would be a fun one to mass produce, and you could skip the extra layers to save time. Okay, for the sentiment, I used the Birch Press Simple Joy dies. I like this because it has the outline die and then the letters themselves that you can layer together. For the stamp sentiment that says "To the World," that is from the Simon Says Stamp Good Cheer stamp set, which I have used a lot this season. I really like the style of these words and the sizes. Nice mix, so you can use it on a variety of cards. Okay, my next example shows using several window dies together on a card. So you can mix and match different window dies, but the ones I used today go together very nicely. Here are the three window dies that I'll use. Instead of the large one there, I could use the lamppost one that I used on my last example. I'll start with the largest die first and cut that from white cardstock. When I'm layering windows together, I think it's best to start with the biggest first. This is the Memory Box Evergreen Sky Collage die. So I cut that from white cardstock, and now I'll lay it onto another piece of white cardstock of the same size. I will then take the medium window die and slide it in there, centering it right inside of the die cut window we already have. I then will put a little piece of tape there to hold it in place as I run it through my die cut machine. By the way, this is that Easy C tape that I am just loving lately. You can reuse those pieces a lot. Okay, so now we have our two layers. You can see how they go together nicely. I have a third piece of cardstock of the same size, and I will then position the smallest window in the center. And by the way, the pieces that we cut out from the center, like this one here, can be used on a card or just save it so you can die cut words from it so it doesn't go to waste. Okay, so there we line up the smallest window, tape that in place, and run it through the die cut machine. Okay, so now I have picked one of my backgrounds, my alcohol ink backgrounds, and I'm trimming it down, and I'm saving these little pieces for a tree card we'll do at the end of this video. Even small pieces can be saved. Now I start gluing my layers together. I like to use Gina K Liquid Connect adhesive. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, and that will hold these layers together. I find it more economical and easier to use than like a tape runner, especially when you have die cuts like this. By the way, I put my phone on that layer just as something heavy to hold it down as it dries for a bit. And there you can see that fun layered scene. I could have done additional die cuts to build up the layer and it would have been more impactful, but in this case I decided to keep it less dimensional. Here I created a little Santa and the reindeer from the Snowglobe cabin die set that I showed you earlier in the video, and I added that right to the sky. I stamped Winter Wishes from the Slimline Simon Says Stamp Christmas stamp set that I showed you earlier also. And I added some white pearls to the sky. The dimension on this is really fun in real life, and it really looks nice to have all that layered, intricate white die cutting around our bold sky. Now on that last example, there were many layers of die cuts, but I wanted to show you could do the same technique but with only one window die. And that really cuts down on the cost, of course, and the effort, and you still get great results. So in this example, I used the Memory Box Small Pine Tree Collage die. Notice right from the center, I also cut my Santa from the Cabin Snowglobe die, so that center white die cut piece wouldn't go to waste. It also saved time. So think about things you can die cut together so that you do less runs through your die cut machine, which saves time when you're mass producing. So here I'll do another one. I'm centering right in the center of my white cardstock. I went ahead and added my little Santa in the center, and it cuts both at once. So this one would be fun to mass produce. I just glued one of my alcohol ink glitter backgrounds behind the window opening, added the Santa in the sky, a few pearls, and a simple white sentiment strip. This is a great way to use those tiny little sentiments that are included in many stamp sets. You could change up the colors of the background to keep it interesting, and even change the sentiments based on the person. This would even be fun for thank you notes too. If you don't have window dies, you could cut a circle and then just add some snowflakes around the edge. Another way to use your inked backgrounds is with frame dies. I'm actually using a layering frame die today that's really fun, but you could use rectangle frame dies or basics that you may have. This is from Birch Press. This is the mini snowflake frame die set. So you'll see they're each a little bit different so that when you layered them together, you have a beautiful layered frame and lots of layers to that snowflake. I'm a fan of layering dies, but if you don't have something like this, you could definitely use rectangle dies to create the frame, and then just add a snowflake in the corner. So I'm gluing that right on to the alcohol ink background. I did it in the center because I liked that area showing, but I will keep these scraps once again to cut tiny trees from later. So I use the Memory Box Pinpoint Snowflake die. That's the die over there on the right. It creates a pattern of little pierced snowflakes in the background. I used white cardstock for that and added it to a white note card. And then we will glue our frame right into the center. Now for this one, I used You Are So Thoughtful. I like to stretch my holiday supplies by using them for other sentiments that happen in the winter. So I could use this as a thank you note for a holiday gift, or just a card that I send during the winter time. So don't think that all of your Santa or snowflake or Christmas tree stamps can only be used for holiday cards. You can use them for other occasions around the same time. The sentiment on this card is from one of my favorite sets this year. This is the Simon Says Stamp Clean Line Gratitude stamp set. I also added a few Trinity Stamp Something New pearls to the snowflake for a little bit of shine. Okay, moving on to another frame die. This one really grabbed my heart when I first saw it. It's an angel that I think you could use for holidays, but also for like a thank you or your thoughtful card. So this is the Poppy Stamp Stained Glass Angel die. So many fun techniques you can do for this. If you've never done the stained glass technique, I'll link to a video here. It would be great with this die. But for this video, I'm just gluing this white die cut onto one of my alcohol ink backgrounds, using liquid adhesive, putting something heavy on it while it dries, and then I'll cut the excess off. On the background of this, I'm using the Memory Box Pinpoint Burst die. This is another one that creates those little piercings in the background. A subtle look, but it makes a big difference on a simple card. To glue this piece on the front of a note card of the same size, I like to use the corner of my MISTI. I put my note card in, and I have glue on my background, and I put my background into the corner too. And then I press down, and I know it's right up against the edge and not crooked. Okay, now I have two cards here that I've done. The background's the same on both, and I used the angel on both. I just used a different sentiment on each. So one says You Are So Thoughtful, and one says Joy to the World. And those are in gold embossing powder, which matches the gold alloy that I used on the alcohol ink backgrounds. So there again is another example of using a die for a holiday and for a non-holiday occasion. The Joy to the World, once again, is from the Simon Says Stamp Good Cheer set. And the other sentiment is once again from the Clean Line Gratitude set from CZ Design and Simon Says Stamp. This is a great design to just dig through sentiments you already have and add those right to the center. Another way to use your inky backgrounds like this alcohol ink background is to put it behind a background die cut. There are many different background die cuts out there, holiday, non-holiday, and to let that bold color show through gives a great design. Here I have the Birch Press String Art Nativity Star die. I love background dies like this. I use them a lot in videos, and this is what I'm actually going to use to make my mom's holiday cards, I think. I really like how intricate it is and how it cuts all of this with one pass in the die cut machine. So you can see there are those star die cut pieces at the top there too. So I glued my background onto one of my alcohol ink backgrounds, trimmed it down and added it to a white note card. I added in the star die cut portion of the die right there in the center for some dimension using gold cardstock for part of it. Then I added a near and far follow his star gold heat embossed sentiment matted with gold cardstock. So this one again didn't take that long because all I did was a background die and a sentiment. I really liked the colors on this inked background that I created, and I wanted as much of it to show as possible, so I used the background die. That sentiment is from the Gina K Designs Holiday Sentimental set that I used earlier. I really like the messages in this, especially for the inside of the card. Okay, now for something very different. I'm using a background die in inlaying our alcohol ink pieces. So I'm kind of looking at this background die in a different way. I've used it in a video before, which I'll link to, but this has a completely different look to it. So this is the Poppy Stamps Holly background die. And I've die cut it from one of my alcohol ink backgrounds, one with holographic cardstock. Without taking the die cut out of the die, I'm removing the negative space and keeping as many pieces in the die as possible. I then can put some tape on the back of this or a piece of press and seal to keep all of the pieces together temporarily. I actually was very lazy here and too lazy to go to the kitchen to get press and seal, so I just use some tape. And I can reuse that tape later on for something else. Now I press all the die cut pieces onto the tape so they stay there. Most of them made it there. And this will help me when I do the die cut inlay. I don't have to look as much for the pieces and where they are. I glued my background white die cut onto a Simon Says Stamp Fog note card. And now I'm inlaying all of the different pieces of alcohol ink background. There are many ways you can do this inlay process, but I thought this was the simplest in this case. Now I did die cut 2 of the holly background from white cardstock and glued that together. So there we have more dimension on the background. And then I popped the inlay pieces right into the bottom. Now here you can see the shine on that holographic cardstock. This was the one that had like the lines in the holographic cardstock that we added the alcohol ink to. Now for the piece, I did white cardstock for the shadow, but then for the letters, I used a purple glitter cardstock so it would match the background. This is the Birch Press Simple Piece die. And once again, for the sentiment underneath it that says From Our Family to Yours, I use the Simon Says Stamp Good Cheer stamp set. So if you have an inky background that you created using a favorite technique, try using it for an inlay with a background die or other die. Sometimes that pop of color can really create a fun, unique card design. And the best part about this is I have a leftover background die cut. That's the one we cut from the alcohol ink background, so I can save that to use on another card. Okay, here's probably my favorite of the bunch of cards from today. I really like the colors of that background, but I also like this set of dies. These are the Frosty Flake dies from Birch Press. So there are 3 dies, and when you layer them together, you get a beautiful white snowflake with lots of dimension. I used E6000 spray adhesive to glue these together. I normally don't like to use sprays, but when an die cut is this intricate, it's a huge time saver. It makes it so much easier to glue the layers together. And by the way, I noticed this die set has a great price point. Okay, here is a look at the completed card. I trimmed down my alcohol ink background and matted it on gold cardstock and added it to a note card where I used the background Pinpoint die with the rays coming out from the center. I glued my snowflake to the top center, added some white pearls. Those are Trinity Stamp Something New pearls. And then gold heat embossed You're Amazing at the center. Once again, I like to use my holiday products for non-holiday cards. The sentiment is from the Altenew Sentiment Strips stamp set, which you can tell there needs a bath. It gets a lot of love at my house, so I need to clean that up and arrange it again, but it has a lot of great sentiments that work on a lot of different cards. At this point, I had lots of colorful alcohol ink background pieces that I wanted to use to make everyday or thank you cards. So recently I've been making cards to folks who donated to help Elizabeth Karchner's family. She recently lost her husband. She's part of the crafty community. And as a thank you to people who donate, I'm sending them a handmade card. So I made a few like this that would be perfect for that occasion. By the way, if you're interested in learning about helping Liz out and getting a handmade card, I will put a link below in the description. So for this, I have a leafy border die. And this way I can put my alcohol ink piece onto my card and then add that white border die cut on front of it. This works great with any kind of backgrounds. You could use pattern paper, stamp backgrounds, anything left over. You just add this leafy border die cut, add a simple sentiment, and you're ready to go. Now for this, I did glue together 2 layers of the white die cut. So it has a little bit of dimension, but you could use foam tape if you prefer. I stamped a simple sentiment on this, but there's a lot of interest to the card because of the technique we use there. I did add a thin gold card scrap right along the border, and it pulls into that gold that we have on our alcohol ink background. Now for this one, I used a Gray Muse stamp set. This is a great stamp set. It's called Social Distance Stamps. Has lots of sentiments that are great during this time of social distance. And I think it'll work for a long time in the future too, even when we can get back together. I used another sentiment from this stamp set on this card example. For this card, I put the border along the bottom of the card and added a holographic cardstock strip right along that border. I encourage you to keep the thinnest, tiniest scraps of your specialty cardstock because they're great for little accent lines like this on simple card designs. Here's another version of this card design using that really bold holographic background that we did with alcohol inks. On this, I used the Gray Muse Lovely Lotus stamp set. This has a sentiment that I think is just perfect. It says, "The world needs your light." And I thought that went nicely with that bright, shiny background. I have 2 more using this border design. This one says, "You're the loveliest," and that is from the Gray Muse Pretty Pansy stamp set. When I do this, where I make multiple of the same design but change each up a little bit, it's a great way to go through your stamp sets and find sentiments you haven't used but would be fitting for a certain occasion. I thought this "You're the loveliest" was a great alternative to a basic thank you. And the last one of this design, this says "To someone who makes me smile," and it's from the same Pretty Pansy Gray Muse stamp set. This one has a much softer look because I used the frosted glitter paper in the background. Okay, now after making all of these cards, I had lots of small scraps of alcohol ink glitter paper left over, tons of them. What I did is I found some small dies and I cut a bunch from these scraps. I used the Poppy Stamps Evergreen Trio dies. You could use hearts, you could use snowflakes. I thought the trees would be perfect for this time of year. Any small dies would work. Even alphabet dies would be fun. So I cut as many as I could out of the scraps I had. Then I arranged them all together on a card. So these are a bunch of different backgrounds together. I used that Snowflake Pinpoint background die cut in the background, so there was a little bit of interest. And then I glued lots of those little trees down. On the top of each tree, I put a little gold sequin that is from the Trinity Stamps Oh My Stars sequin set. And then I added Happy Holidays from the Simon Says Stamp Good Cheer stamp set. So this was a fun card design to do using up all of our little scraps, and I have lots of leftover trees to make additional cards like this. So there you have it, loads of card ideas, and God bless you for watching this long into this video. I apologize that it's long, but sometimes I get carried away and just have fun creating, and I hope it inspires you too. If you want to check out the different supplies I used here, they're linked below in my YouTube description, but I encourage you to check out the supplies you already have. If you are looking for more ideas, I link 2 videos here at the end in the middle. I also have a link to my blog, which is up here on the top right, and it has photos of the many projects I share here. Thank you for spending this time with me. Please stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon with more videos.